Hey guys, SGT here, and I couldn't be more happy to have Andy Hoffman of Miles Franklin back on the line. Andy, I have to tell you, I've got some of the best readers in the world. Before I called you here, put a post up on SGT Report telling folks I was going to speak with you, and I wanted people to contribute their questions, any questions they had, and I got some great responses. So the first question comes from basically Brad, Nathan, and John, who are all asking about the same thing as it relates to a meltdown in Greece. Jim Sinclair just put up a great post, and people are concerned, as he is, that we might see a default declared by the ISDA, or an official repudiation of the debt by the Greek government. What do you see in the cards for Greece? Do you think a financial meltdown is imminent in the Eurozone? And if so, what's the ripple effect for us?
Well, let's see. That's a lot to digest, Sean. I will say, for one, though, that Jim Sinclair, who I have attributed as pretty much the number one influence on my business career over the past 10 years, I have been following every word he has written. I don't agree with everything he says, but most. But I can say that I have never seen him write so often and so emphatically as he has written in the past month about the events that are soon to come. So when you see that kind of urgency from Jim Sinclair, you take it to heart. As far as the individual things you're talking about, I mean, you never want to bet against what the criminals will do. But from the way I see it, this bailout deal looks a lot like the one in October, which never happened. Remember, they announced a 50% haircut. All the stock markets exploded on it, and the fact was it never even came close to being consummated. This deal is essentially, to me, the same terms, except they're more draconian in the austerity, what they're asking the Greeks to do. The Greek people don't get any of the money. The Greek government actually has to subsidize the deal itself. And then, of course, it came out yesterday that part of the fine print is if there's non-performance, that the EU gets their gold, and I think that's going to be the deal breaker. I just can't see these countries giving in to these austerity demands that they'll never be able to meet, and as a gift they get to lose their gold as well. So there's a lot of talk about what's going to happen around March 20th when they have their 14 billion euro bond payment. There's all kinds of rumors that it's going to default, and there's everything being set up. And I just don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I do know the ISDA certainly won't call it a default unless it actually is 100% default. But it doesn't even matter because everyone knows that it's a default, and it's only a matter of time before the credit rating agencies and the markets in general, take heed of that.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think it's going to take for the people in this country and the people around Europe to stand up and call for the arrest of these criminal bankers that are doing this? It's evident at this point that they are criminals. The goal is to enslave Greece, and then they're just going to keep trying to enslave the rest of the countries, Portugal, Spain. Eventually they're going to turn it around in the United States. I think for any thinking person, that's exactly what, the conclusion is.
Right. Well, what's going to happen in Greece is obviously different than what will happen here. The people in Greece are completely at the mercy, for the most part, of the bankers right now, and I mean their only real choice to fight back is going to be simply to just say no. In which case, they'll have to go through an immediate hyperinflation, and so they're kind of backed in a corner. I think they're going to take that choice because I think it's the better of the Hobson's choices out there. As far as bankers in this country, I don't hold any hope that any of the people in charge will ever be held account for what they're doing. But I do believe that the system is going to fall of its own weight, no matter how much they try. I mean, just the marginal, there's diminishing returns to what they've been doing, and right now we're at a point where the more they do, the worse they make things. So I think the Achilles heel has always been the physical gold, and particularly the tiny silver market, and because people consider those the historical barometers of bad tidings, and when they are out of control, the world will know it, and when that happens, you're going to see people showing fear of paper assets, and they're going to be desperately trying to get into the physical assets that are going to be essentially repudiating the system. And when that happens, it's not a matter of arrests of the bad guys. It's just going to be wholesale changes in the governments of the world. And I can't say if that's going to happen in March or if it's going to happen next year, but it's certainly going to happen, and it's not going to be, quote, in a few years. It's going to be soon.
Now, in one of your latest posts, Andy, you write about the death of the middle class, and what we're seeing is savings being obliterated by inflation. We've seen it for decades. Most folks in this country still aren't aware of it. Most folks in this country still aren't aware of what the Federal Reserve System is and how these bankers are robbing them of their wealth. Tell us a little bit about why you wrote that article, Death of the Middle Class.
The thing that inspired it was a chart that I saw showing that in 1984, the average person under 35 years old or under 36 years old had a net worth of $11,000, and that was obviously in 1984 dollars. Today, 25 years later, or 27 years later, we're at $3,000 on average for the net worth of someone under 36 years old. Now, of course, that's in today's dollars, which have been massively inflated. I don't even believe that number is true because I don't believe the average person has a positive net worth, given what's happened with the real estate market and the stock market over the past decade. But irrespective, what inspired the piece was the fact that I just don't see, because you talked about people losing their savings to inflation. They've also lost it to the fact that all the jobs have gone overseas and they're never coming back. And I just can't see someone who's 30 years old or 35 or 20 or 15, let alone, being able to get from a $3,000 net worth in this environment of falling wages and rising inflation and low and high unemployment, getting from $3,000 to $100,000, let alone $1 million. And of course, that's going to be a moving target because inflation is going to make $1 million not worth that much at some point soon. The savings rate is also at record lows, and it wouldn't matter if it was higher because the interest rates are being kept at zero. So the only people that make money off of the low interest rates are the bankers, and the rest of the people can't save any money, and they don't really have much to save even if they wanted to.
Okay, quick two-part question. Here's the first part. You can answer it, and then I'll ask the second part. Have you been caught off guard at all by the relatively big move in both silver and gold in just the past few days, including today as we speak? Silver's up over $1.
Well, no. I mean, I've certainly been wrong about things in the past, but I'm very careful about talking about charts because of the paint, the tape painting that's been going on for a decade. But in this particular case, I have been extremely, extremely vehement about what I think is going to happen. I made one short-term call at the end of the year. I said gold will not stay under its 200-day moving average for very long, and it was about a week or two, and it's never looked back. And as for silver, I said I believe that $30 will never be penetrated again. I think the same kind of manipulation that suppressed the price under 20 for a year caused this impregnable line at 20 that I don't think will ever be crossed. And now the past year's machinations have created the same level of support at $30. I also have been pointing out that the 200-day moving average of silver is about $34.95. So we blew through it today. I mean, that's why we blew through it, because people were waiting to see if it would make it through. And like gold, silver has spent very, very little time in the last 11 years under its 200-day moving average. The fact that it's spent the last 5 months below it is just unbelievably ridiculous, since absolutely nothing has happened that would explain it other than manipulation. But the good news is that it's now blown through it, and I think it's going to become support. I don't think 30 will ever be penetrated again, and I think that you're going to see more and more people realize that it was nothing more than a manipulation. I personally believe that if we just hold up here for a little bit, we're going to be in the 40s in no time, and that it's a fait accompli that we're going to be taking a run at the all-time high sometime in the spring.
Wow, in the spring already. Okay, well, that's encouraging news. I'm going to paraphrase a question here from Steve, who is asking about a spring financial meltdown. Big Square has predicted that's coming. Jim Sinclair is obviously concerned about Greece. In the event of a financial meltdown or the financial system going belly up, what's your take on the possibility of a massive takedown in the paper price of silver? They still have that control?
Oh, well, they got plenty of control. And but what it comes down to is diminishing returns, because every single time we've had one of these meltdowns and they've taken the paper prices down, it was so obviously, blatantly the cartel doing it. In 2008, when gold fell, when it fell in September, remember in July and August we were having a meltdown and gold and silver soared. It wasn't until minutes after the Labor Day weekend when they started their Operation PM Annihilation, which happened also to coincide with the Swiss bank devaluing their currency by 10%. So, the first thing people need to realize is all those things that, happened, all those meltdowns, gold and silver did not fall. They were taken down, okay? And yes, the cartel, of course, if there's anything like that, that will be one of their top priorities to try to do that, because the system ends if gold becomes the safe haven instead of treasury bonds and the dollar. So yeah, they will try, but again, it's this diminishing returns thing that I've graphically pointed out about how little bang they've been getting for their buck in the things they've been doing. And frankly, if we have the next meltdown is going to be the big one. We had the part one was 3 years ago. Let's call it 1A, happened in the fall. It was getting close to that, and they turned it around before it became like part one. But the next one that happens, there's going to be no more ammunition. There's going to be no more, we'll just print another $1 zillion and everything will be fine. That's when the major changes are going to come. And I believe 100% that the next time we have one of those meltdowns, if we have one like that gold and silver will overcome the cartel, and it'll probably mean the end of the cartel. It's just a matter of when.
Hey guys, thanks for watching part 1, and don't miss part 2.